DeAndre Hopkins will turn 31 years old on June 6th. Was this an early birthday present? The Arizona Cardinals have released DeAndre Hopkins. He is now free to sign anywhere he wants, and he recently talked about some of the quarterbacks that he admires in the NFL, so maybe he can end up with one of them. It was, it was kind of who you'd expect to be on the list. I'm Adam Mazer with Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg. Hopkins was the number 9 wide receiver per game last year, and that was with a game where he had 1 catch for 4 yards on 10 targets from Trace McSorley. He's been terrific. He's, Jamie and I talked about it, borderline Hall of Famer perhaps, but is he at the end of his rope? The first question is, Dave, Jamie, start with you, Dave. Is this a good thing that he was released? Is this a good thing for Hopkins' fantasy value? He's currently a round 4 pick in Fantasy Pros ADP, consensus ADP, I believe wide receiver 21.
I think it'll end up moving the needle a little bit in the direction toward the top. I don't think he's ever going to go back to being a top 10 type of fantasy wide receiver, at least not on draft day. But the chance to go and play in a better offense, I think it absolutely helps him. It's just a matter of, is he going to an offense that's so loaded with receiving talent that his target share suffers? Because he needs volume. He needs volume and he needs touchdowns.
Jamie, is it a good thing? Is there actually a realistic situation that could be worse for him than starting probably with Colt McCoy for a chunk of the season?
Well, first off, it's a great thing because he gets to choose his own fate, so he can't complain about, being traded somewhere. I know he had a no trade clause, but if he wants to go play for whatever money is going to be the deciding factor, that's his choice. The teams that he listed don't exactly have a lot of cap space. Most teams don't at this point, so if he wants to go to Kansas City or Buffalo or Philly or any of these teams, he's going to have to, make a decision, or going to have to be creative with the money and how it happens. So I like the fact that he was released as opposed to being traded. Does it help his fantasy value going to a new team? Sure. I mean, yes, Colt McCoy clearly was going to feature him. Kyler Murray was going to feature him. Murray was going to be the quarterback there, and Arizona was going to feature him. But he goes to the Chiefs. This would be the greatest situation possible for him because, I mean, you look at the receiving core there, and yes, Kadarius Toney has some upside, and maybe Sky Moore has some upside, and Rashee Rice and all these other guys that are there. He becomes the 1A, behind Travis Kelce. So to Dave's point, yes, he's not going to necessarily get the same type of targets that he needs, but the quality of targets would be amazing. And so, pairing him with Mahomes and Andy Reid, that would be, to me, the best case scenario. I would still consider him a top 15 wide receiver. Buffalo, where he would, push Gabe Davis to, the background and be the starter opposite Stephon Diggs, probably be the next best situation, just knowing what that offense looks like and what his opportunities would be. It would be a negative for a guy like Stephon Diggs. But, then you start to just, go down the list of the teams that he listed. Jalen Hurts would be great it would be great for Jalen Hurts if he gets DeAndre Hopkins, but you start to lose with those other guys there. Baltimore, we just don't know how that would work. I would probably put that third behind the other two situations just because he would automatically be the number 1 receiver there. Los Angeles for the Chargers, so many mouths to feed there too. So it makes a lot of sense. The teams that he listed with the quarterbacks that were, would be throwing to him. But to me, it's Kansas City with bullseye, and hopefully that's where he ends up.
Yeah, I'll tell you where I want to see him end up. I know he didn't mention this guy. He didn't mention Jared Goff. But the Lions, according to overthecap.com, the Lions have the 3rd most salary cap space right now. The Chiefs and the Bills have the 2nd and 3rd lowest amount of salary cap space. The Bucs have the least amount, then the Chiefs, then the Bills. So I know those are definitely teams that are going to be rumored to be getting, in the sweepstakes for Hopkins. You can always, restructure some contracts to create some space. But man, I would love to see that on the Detroit Lions. I think he'd be great. Dave, what about you? Got a place in mind where you'd love to see DeAndre Hopkins go?
Not yet. I think about, without putting an actual team to it, Adam, I'm thinking, all right, I know he's not going to get like the 30% target share that he's had for the last 5 seasons. It's going to be closer to 22, 23%.
Why?
Because I guess you're right. It could be on a team like Detroit where he could actually soak up probably close to 30% there, for example. But I'd rather, short of him going to a team where he can get 30% of the target share, let's get him on a team that just throws a lot, that puts the ball in the air a ton. I think Buffalo is certainly one of those teams. Kansas City is clearly one of those teams, although they don't do it as much as I think they really want to. The Chargers would be one of those teams, but they don't really need him unless they're going to move on from It would have to be Mike Williams. They just exchanged the contract for Keenan Allen and they drafted Quentin Johnson. I don't think that's happening. The Ravens also is an option. That would be surprising based on what they've already invested in their receiving core. So I haven't really thought about a specific team, but it's the same two that you'd want him to go to, and that's Buffalo and KC.
You can see the Bears potentially in the mix, just trying to, give their young quarterback some more help. The Patriots will be sort of the team I think that gets rumored, but I'd be very surprised if he goes there.
Not happening.
Please no.
Especially with Bill O'Brien.
Right.
But you never know. I mean, that was one of the scenarios of trade possibilities. Then there'll be some, wild card. I could see, oh, look, the Dolphins are all of a sudden in the mix for DeAndre Hopkins, or the Browns clearly with Deshaun Watson, being in the mix for Hopkins. Maybe the Jets, Aaron Rodgers wants something and they try to figure out a way to make it work, so there's going to be, probably a surprise team, but, based on what he said, based on the need, to me, Kansas City just makes so much sense.